How's it going, everybody? My name is BobaTalks and welcome to this episode 4 of Westworld Breakdown. Now, this episode was just absolutely incredible. I hope you agree with me, just because we learned so many things. Personally, I love a lot of Man in Black stuff, especially when we go into flashbacks. But also with this episode, there were some huge bombshells. Some predictable, some were theorized a lot amongst fans. But either way, it was just full of development that we've just been itching to find out. And that is, yes, the stuff with James Delos, the lady who went from the park that we saw in last episode into this park. I think you guys will know what I'm on about, but I'll get to that. But yeah, other than that, this episode was just fantastic. But now I'm going to get into my top moments, or just my breakdown / review of this episode, starting with the whole James Delos stuff. Now, at the beginning, I thought, what the heck was going on? Is this just his apartment, or is he just being kept somewhere, you know, in terms of what we've learned before with their prior conversation at the retirement party? If you guys remember, William said that, you know, we're close, and he was getting impatient. But this is the thing about Westworld. There's a lot of stuff that they try and play in throughout the episode where you get a little bit confused, and then they pick it up in other scenes and revisit it, and it gives you the clarification that you need until the next scene where it kind of drops the bombshell. It's like very, very interesting that way. And there wasn't too much more to it than that. It was definitely curious. You kind of wondering what William is up to, especially this is the post-part season 1 William, in the in-between years, or like time after Westworld season 1, where he's taken over the company. The retirement parties are obviously already happened at this point. But the moment things get seriously interesting in this part is when we see James Delos on the bicycle again, you know, the bicycle machine, and then he gets asked by that lady again saying you have a visitor, and you're thinking, okay, what is up here? What is going on? And so William walks in again. Now, I really, really like this because, you know, I felt like we were surprised as the audience, as James Delos was surprised, because this time when William gave that letter to James, we actually got to see what was on it. And the very words he was saying were scripted on the freaking paper. And that was just like, oh my God, they're actually going with, this is where you kind of get to figure out, or where I got to figure out in the episode, where oh my God, they're actually doing the potential host / human merge. And everyone's been speculating that for a little while now. I don't know if you've been aware of this, but if you're a bit of a Westworld nut, you may have gone on Reddit or just other places, and there's been this big speculation, especially ever since they teased that they were gathering host, or should I say guest, DNA and whatnot. The fact that they might actually be trying to merge, or Delos will be trying to merge human consciousness within hosts or something. Now, this bit was just so impactful when, you know, he kind of realizes, like, I take it I didn't recover then. And William was just like, nope. How long has it been? And William's just like, 7 years. And you're just like, as well as James in the episode, completely like, oh my God. So, and even though James Delos is meant to be this kind of really horrible man in the real world, I kind of felt sorry for him in a way, because it's like, you know, it's time we get the F out of here. And then they go on to talk about his wife, and, you know, she died of a stroke. They touch on William's daughter very quickly, and then he just realizes, oh my God, you know, I haven't seen the several years of her growing up, and just stuff like that. I thought it was brilliant. The acting was just phenomenal. It really, really was. You know, when he's just glitching out or trying to say his own stuff, I found that very fascinating. It's like almost he could only say a certain, you know, the same words we've seen in each scene of this repeating each flashback. But whenever he tried to, like, this new development, this new host / human tried to say his own things, he was almost incapable, or just couldn't get those words out, and that was really, really fascinating. Anyway, this is where we found out, you know, it's actually this room, and then he's got staff there trying to work on James, and on the screen it said build 31, so that was the 31st time, I believe, that he had been actually built and then degraded and then terminated. But just talking strictly about when the Man in Black went to go visit James, and it was the exact same sequence. You know, it's like, so you've got a guest coming in, and then Man in Black walks in, and he's like, William? And this is like when he has what, like the 149th realization that this is obviously, he's been here for a while. and he was just like, F me. And can you hardly blame him? And we got a proper explanation as to why, after all these years, William hasn't been successful in making James Delos an actual functioning human host, or, you know, just like an eternal human, which is so ethically wrong. And that was exactly, in the words of William, how the engineers call it, a cognitive plateau. And your mind is stable for a few hours, a few days, and then it starts to fall apart every time. At first it was like, you know, he thought it was his mind rejecting the body, like kind of how like an organ can do that if it's not a perfect match. But it's more like his mind rejects reality. It's just like the host can't really comprehend it. And the thing I find interesting as well is that they did actually make progress. I believe he'd been going for around 35 days this time before degrading, and even in a year he predicts that they might actually have cracked it. But the thing is, this is the most fascinating thing. It's like as William, you know, even though he went from good to bad and now he's almost going good again, because he's like, I'm not so sure anymore. He has this kind of revelation how this whole enterprise shouldn't really exist anymore, and how people aren't meant to live forever. Now I kind of think that this is the personification of what the Man in Black, or William, is going through now in this timeline. This kind of not necessarily redemptive arc, but in a way he is. He's not like a hero, he's not a villain, but he's more close to an anti-hero if you look at it in a comic booky way. You kind of feel sorry a little bit for James. Amongst this as well, we learned that his wife Juliet is dead. We learned that Logan did actually in fact end up killing himself through drugs, you know, overdosing. So I guess no more Logan, unless we get some kind of flashbacks to when William had just left the park. Now in this episode as well, the Man in Black was confronted with actually the men Teddy let go, or, you know, Dolores recruited to fight against the, you know, the QA people, quality assurance people who came in the park. I really like how he said, you know, we got double crossed by some bitch or something like that named Wyatt, and William was just like, you know what, good for her, good for her. Now this line from Lawrence in the episode, he was talking about his daughter. He also said to William, you know, you told me you had a daughter once as well, and I was like, bingo. They are obviously, like, it's too coincidental at this point in the episode, even though we did get the reveal, which I'll get to. I feel like, I don't know about you guys, I feel like probably most people clocked on to exactly who this person may well be. Now, kind of talking of the good William, or the good Man in Black kind of that we're getting, obviously Lawrence's family was being trolled around a lot by this guy who was, you know, really being absolutely horrible to all the townspeople, Lawrence's family. And, you know, there was this moment when he was actually talking to the lead guy. I really can't remember his name for the life of me right now. But then the rain was dripping as well, and there was this blatant flashback to when William was rushing after his wife, James Delos' daughter, and she had committed suicide in the bath, and that was very, very tragic. It definitely obviously haunts William. A lot of people believe that he wasn't really in love with his wife, and, you know, even though he realized Dolores, he couldn't believe he was in love with Dolores. He wasn't necessarily really in love with his wife either. Then we got an absolute badass moment with him. He just went out and slayed absolutely everyone. I like how he was being kind of kind to Lawrence's family and his wife. However, it does make us question, was he doing all of these good things just to play the game, or is there actually a bit of heart left in the Man in Black after all? Because we got Ford speaking through Lawrence's daughter saying, you know, one good deed, I know who you are, William, one good deed doesn't change that. And William's just like, who said anything about a good deed? You wanted me to play you a game, I'm going to play it to the bone. So I guess maybe William just thought that was exactly what he had to do, and that's why he did it. But I choose to believe there is obviously a bit of humanity and not just pure cold-hearted ness to the Man in Black. But anyway, the Man in Black storyline ends up with him riding into the distance after Ford told him, if your direction is forward, you're going in the wrong direction or something like that. So it looks like he needs to go back to where maybe the Man in Black began, back to his actual good self, William origins. But along the ride, coincidentally, somehow his daughter says hi dad, obviously, but this is Grace, we know, who washed up from the other park. I thought there might have been this whole other storyline she had with Ashley, you know, when they were captured by the Indians, but that seemed to have been it, and the Indians seemed to disappear as well. And like, the Indian gave Ashley quite an interesting line: you only live as long as the last person who remembers you. So that's very interesting. I'd love to know what you think about that. But he's also the guy we recognize, if you remember him back when Logan was being sold the whole Westworld pitch. he was one of the hosts who was actually showing it to him. So it's kind of like the host being reused for multiple different narrative situation here. Now the Bernard stuff this episode. When is the stuff with Bernard never not interesting? God, because of the whole cognitive failure he's going through at the minute, introduces all kinds of time slippage. And we got actually a cool explainer for that in this episode. But let's first talk about how he found Elsie. Clementine dragged him to a cave, and now this is interesting as well. It seems to all be a part of Ford. This is how Ford is still breathing in the world. He found Elsie. There was a bit of drama between, obviously trusting, since he was the one who choked her out back in season 1. Obviously Bernard was glitching out as well because of his cognitive failure. I kind of felt bad for him a little bit because he was forced to do what he did to Elsie back in season 1, and she was obviously not trusting, so he's struggling this whole time, but she put him in safe mode, and he woke up. But this is when he realized through his kind of memories of being controlled by Ford that there is a facility exactly where they are, and this is also why Ford must have dragged him there, so he'd kind of eventually caught on to what was going on and why he was even there, especially with Elsie there, which is fascinating too, because Ford must have kind of wanted that through getting Bernard to give her protein bars. It's all Ford's game, all of this. It's very, very fascinating, and I can't wait to see what his end game is. Could he have successfully somehow put himself into a host? God no. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this whole facility that was unlocked was a whole lab, but we saw loads of techs, or whatever you want to call them, the kind of people who work on hosts, I guess let's just call them techs for now, were absolutely decimated or slaughtered like animals, but worse. You know, it was horrible. Now all throughout this kind of scenes with Bernard and Elsie, there was time slippage moments where he's remembering little bits of this and that. Bernard also remembers making this like processor or something, and that was very interesting to see what processor is being made, and we kind of got a reveal for that as well. It was being made for another human, so the only other one we know of right now is James Delos. But this other one he was making, who could that be for? That is the question. Could it have been for could it have been for Ford himself, or was it for Peter Abernathy? Depends how long this was all the time slippage moments were that we saw of Bernard in the past here when he was creating this processor. But I don't know. Who could it be? I don't know if it was Peter Abernathy, because what other human could be in Peter? I would love to know your thoughts on that, because surely maybe Ford would plan to make himself go into a host, but as we know, even William didn't kind of master that, but maybe it's something Ford knew that he didn't. The reason why I mentioned Abernathy as well, because as Elsie said, this OS is completely different, and Bernard links it to exactly what he saw in Peter Abernathy's head, this whole encryption scheme that he's found, and it's also like in reference to a database that is much larger than anything he's ever known in the park. And what do we know this database to probably be about? Guest data. But anyway, guys, we got a huge reveal that this room was actually the room William, or should I say the Man in Black, this facility was where James Delos was being, you know, created again and again 149 times, and he was still kicking in there. Now, that latest time the Man in Black went in to see him wasn't too long ago, but then Bernard obviously went in there, and he realizes right at the end, as Elsie makes him, you know, kind of promise that he would never lie to her or like hurt her again kind of thing, he's like, well, no, everything's fine. So does this mean that Bernard is going to have more controlling moments like that, since Ford is somewhat still, you know, breathing through the hosts, you know, different hosts like Lawrence's daughter? Does this mean that he can just take over Bernard now and actually do something evil? Or is Bernard, as he says in this episode, for the first time, actually able to make his own decisions, his own choices, with Ford not controlling him? But also we got like kind of the breakdown of how they realized and how they printed James Delos's body and copied his developed mind onto a control unit, like one of the control units that are put in hosts. But this is where it kind of goes back to what William, or the Man in Black, said about how a human mind in a control unit that they use for hosts, when they kind of are here, they can't seem to comprehend reality, and as a result, after even though optimal time that they've got over time, you know, with 35 days worth, they eventually still degrade. And they put him out of his misery. He was saying some proper spoony ass stuff. I was trying to read into it even more, but I couldn't think of anything. But I would love to know if you have anything to say about those last words James Delos had to say to Bernard before Elsie incinerated him and well, terminated it, just like we saw the engineers or the techs do before, around the 35th time he was rebuilt, the poor bloody bloke. Either way, guys, I think that is mainly the gist of this episode. Absolutely freaking unbelievable. Now, last episode was good. It was really good. And obviously in this episode, we had no Dolores or anything like that, but I felt like we needed a lot of this stuff. They obviously wanted to pay off a lot of the teasers we've already had in this season so far with this whole episode attributed to like just these storylines. For example, what the heck is going on with James Dallas's, you know, degeneration or like disease, what happened to him, the whole answer to our hosts being, you know, incorporated into, guests being incorporated into hosts. It was just remarkable. We got obviously a reveal of Grace is actually William's daughter. Even Lawrence said, you know, would your daughter want to watch you being blah blah blah, and he was just like, yeah, probably, you know. So they don't have the best relationship, obviously, but she's obviously got a lot of her capabilities from her father William, because I can't imagine he was the best father, but I bet he ensured that she was very well educated, very well firm, and all kinds of other things. And that is exactly what she seems to be like in the show. She looks like she can take care of herself, and she probably seems like she even seems to me that she has some of the same problems. Like, she seems cold, doesn't really seem like she's going to be, you can get too close to her. She seems like, yeah, she has kind of a cold heart like her father, but I reckon there is like something in there. But anyway, guys, let me know what you thought of this episode. I thought it was remarkable, best one so far in terms of paying off all these mysteries, but also introducing lots of other ones. Leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, as I really appreciate the support, and it only takes 2 seconds of your time. And if you're new to this channel and you want to see more Westworld videos, why not subscribe for more videos just like this, which is what I just said. I want to thank all my patrons for supporting me on this channel. If you're curious and want to become a patron yourself, head over to my Patreon page at the top of my description. I also have social media links are in this description as well, also to my Discord server. But apart from that, everybody, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.